Okay, so this is section 1, 1.1, and this is writing numbers. Well, you can't, yeah, you can say it a little bit. Writing numbers in equivalent forms. Okay, that's my short script. Okay, equivalent forms. Equivalent forms. Okay, so writing numbers in equivalent forms. What this means is going from, what we're going to talk about is going from numbers that aren't whole numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are whole numbers, right? They don't have fractions. Like there's no fractions, or decimals, right? Right. We're going to go here, right? Is we're going to go from fractions and decimals and back, right? Because a fraction is just a decimal written in fraction form, and a fraction is just a decimal written in fraction form. Okay, and there's benefit to this because if you're using a calculator or something, um, it's easy to type stuff in decimal form. If you're working numbers on paper, a lot of the times it's easy to do it in fraction form than it is to do it in decimal form. And you'll notice that decimals, some common decimals will pop up a lot on your calculators that you'll be like, oh, that's this fraction. That's easy to recognize. Okay, and then some whole numbers, um, come out, and you'll see like a whole number with a fraction in front of it or behind it, and sometimes you'll have an improper fraction. So let's get right down to it, and we'll define some different types of numbers here right now. Okay, so first, say we have something that has a repeating decimal. Like a really common one of this is like 1/3. Let me quit calculator real quick. So magically my calculator appears, and I can type this into my calculator a couple different ways. The easiest and obvious is I go 1 divided by 3 gives me 0.33333. This is the repeating decimal, is 0.33, and I could write this 333 and cover this page with threes, right? Because this is 3 goes on to infinity, or I could just put a bar over those threes, and that would indicate that bar says it repeats, because it's a repeating decimal, right? So that 0.33333 shows it goes on forever. If you double it and make it 2 divided by 3, it's 0.666666666 forever, right? And this is where the fraction is actually better to show on paper, because 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 1, 3/3, right? But if you show 0.333 plus 0.333 plus 0.333, you kind of lose the optics, because it looks like it equals 0.99 repeating forever when it actually equals 1. That's not correct. It actually equals 1, right? So it's easier to show 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3 equals 1 with your fractions, because you don't really show it's hard to really show this repeating forever, right? Because if I do 1/3 plus 1/3 plus 1/3, it equals 1, right? You can go 0.33333 in a calculator. That's not a third. That's 3333333 forever, plus 0.33333 is for as many 3s I can put in there, plus point for as many I can put in there, it equals that. That's close to 1, but it's not actually 1. Right? You might be asking, hey, how did I do those fractions in there? Well, it's right here. This ABC button is 1/3. That's little backwards half L represents a fraction bar. If I want to do, like, say 1 1/3, 1 1/3, that's 1 1/3. And see this DC, let me zoom in a little bit there. This little button that says DC above it, right? That's how you change that into an improper fraction. You press the second button, press the DC, and there you have, it's 4/3. That's how you operate that calculator to show an improper fraction. And check this out. If you want to change this into a decimal format, you just go second F to D, which means fraction to decimal or decimal to fraction. And there you go. That's 1 1/3. Right? And this is actually calculator. It doesn't have a little bar over it, but the calculator knows that that 3333333 goes on forever. So that's just a cool little piece of information there. Okay, a little tangent, if you will. All right, so that's a repeating decimal. Repeating decimals, which I wanted you guys to kind of pick up from that one. Okay, so moving on to something else here. Irrational number is the next thing we're going to talk about. Irrational number. Rational number. All right, so we talked about a rational number, many rational numbers in the last thing. So a rational number, okay, as we can say, we'll just let two numbers, right? We'll let A equal a number, any number, number, yeah. A equal, let A equal represent any number, and let B equal any, we'll say let A equal any value, any whole number, any whole number, and then any value, whole number, other than 0. Okay, so a rational number could be anything. Okay, fraction bar, A divided by B. And this is a ratio or a fraction. Okay, it can be expressed as a ratio. A, this is a ratio of A to B. The number of A's to the number of B's. A to the number of B's. If I make B 0, I can't divide things by 0 because it would be undefined, right? Say apples to bananas. For instance, if I have 1 apple, oops, that's the wrong color. For every 1 apple, I have 2 bananas, right? That's my ratio. Okay, so that is a rational number. Okay, so this would be a ratio of 0.5 in fraction form. Right, if I had 2 bananas or 2 apples, right, I would have 4 bananas. Okay, that's a rational number. These are called integers. This is an integer, and this is an integer. And the denominator, and remember this is a numerator. This is the denominator. It's down. Nominator. Right? It cannot be 0. Okay? So that's that so far. Alright, what else do I want to cover in this one? Okay. So, let's show, we already showed you how to go from fraction to decimal with a calculator. Right, so on a calculator we have a fraction. We'll say it's 5/8. Okay? If we're going to go 5/8, you can either do one of two things. You go 5 divided by 8, and that's our 6.625. That's a common decimal form. Okay, 1/8, or 1 divided by 8, 0.125. That's your base value of an eighth. You can multiply that by 5 and you get 0.625, right? Or you can do 5/8. That's 5/8. Press the second button and pull up the green stuff, fraction to decimal, and that's 0.625. Okay? So that is that. How do I go? Say I have 1 and 5/8. Now how do I turn that into a improper fraction on my calculator? Well, again, I press the second button and I go D to C, and it's 13/8. How do I do that on paper? Say I have 1 and 5/8. How do I, if I didn't have a calculator, do that here? Okay, 1 and 5/8. How do I do that? Okay, well, it's not too bad. How many eighths make a 1? Well, there are 8 eighths to make a 1. So that equals 8 eighths plus 5/8, right? Because that's just 1 plus 5/8, right? So 5 plus 8 equals 13. And then when you're adding a fraction together, you just keep the denominators the same. So that is like that. That's how you do that one. Okay, say it was 2 and 5/8, right? Well, 2 and 5/8. Well, 2 times 8 is 16, right? So 2 times 8 is 16 eighths. 16 divided by 8 is 2. Yeah, okay? So that's going to be plus 5/8. So 16 plus 5. Oh man, 16 plus 5 is 21. 21 eighths. Okay, so 21 eighths equals 2 and 5/8. Decimal for that. That's 2.625. Oh, okay. That's cool. 2 point, the fraction, 6.25. Awesome. Okay. Well, that's different ways to write the different ways. All right. Well, let's look at it a different way. Let me pause this for a second and go get something useful. Alright, so you might ask yourself, man, when am I ever going to use this in real life? Alright, so say for instance, you are helping to build, I don't know, a playhouse or a tree house. Okay? For your daughter or for yourself or for whatever. And you measure distance. You got your tree, right? Like this. This is my tree. And you got to run a piece of wood, 2x4, from here, from this point here to this point here. And you measure those two spots like that. Okay? And you measure it, and it comes out to, I don't know, something like, it says that, and then it's like, I will say, right here, right there. That is the spot. Maybe adjust this so it's easier to, gotta go that way. That is the spot. That is how, and I gotta be really precise. Right there. Okay, this is harder than I thought it would be. Okay, it is right there is my spot. Right there. On this mark. Right here. Right here on that mark. Okay? How long is that piece of wood gonna be? Well, I know it's at least it's gonna be 1 foot. And it's gonna be at least 22 inches. But then it's out here and it's some fraction more than 22 inches. Okay, so, well, this is a half. Okay, that is a half of an inch. Okay, then what's a half of an inch? Well, half of an inch is a quarter. All right, so this is a 1/2. And then each increment between a half and a half is a quarter. So here, I should be using a different color maybe. So this is a quarter, 1/4, and this is one. Hard to read this at the same. This is a fourth, 1/4. Okay, and then between that and that, if I split a fourth in half, each one of those fourths is going to be an eighth, 1/8, and then split that in half, it's going to be a 16th. All right, so it's going to be 1/16 short of a quarter. Oh man. Okay, so I go a half, which is, let's see, I guess that's 8/16 plus 9/16 plus 10/16 is pretty much plus 11/16. All right, so that's what I'm at. It's 22 in a 1 foot and 22 11/16 inches, and that is how big that thing is. Right? Did I do that right? 11. Let's see. Half is 8. 8/16, 9/16, 10/16, 11/16 is right there. 11/16. Right? If you need to be real precise with your cutting, and how. See if my blade is is 1/8 of an inch thick, I need to start my cut. I need to make sure that I have to take that into consideration. It's going to take away that much of the wood, right? So those are some things you need to take into consideration when you're cutting your boards and stuff like that, right? So think about that. And then, so what is 11/16 in decimal form? Well, if I go over here, I can just maybe zoom out a little so you can see that. If I do 11 divided by 16, divided by 16, that's 0.8 or 0.6875, or what if I remember what my 1/16 is. So half is 0.625, 0.0625, and I multiply that by 11. That's another way to do that. Okay? So that is writing numbers in different equal forms. I hope that helps you guys with the different works and things like that.